Moving in from talking about Hazara culture, or my friends who are of Hazara culture, I wanted to talk about something that was recent, hot topic, is America recently announcing that they'd leave Afghanistan, and obviously Australia follows suit. What are the implications of that?
I think no one knows. I think anyone who says they know, they don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating to me, and I'll tell you why. My other perspective, my other friend who I asked, he seemed good, right? He says it's good, and my experience growing up is, whatever you guys say, I'm gonna be on your side about it because I'm your friend. I want to work out for you, but I also understand that if I want to take some time to do some research, I might find reason for my own opinion. However, I'm still probably gonna support you despite my opinion, because my opinion is just an opinion. What you guys are saying comes from like a level of investment. Something I can also project is to bring up to kind of parallel is the Vietnamese experience with. We also had our America leaving.
Yeah.
I'll do a bit of a thing on my end about our America leaving, being Vietnam War, lost the war, cool. Like America left, lost the war, done. So you have the side that was against America, fucking thrilled. The North, they love it, very happy. And then you have the side that's where my family's from, the South. We don't love that. We had to leave the country. It wasn't great for us. Growing up, I've studied history. I've seen both sides. Okay, I understand. First of all, I'm always on the stance of war is just shit, bro. Like, fuck. Yeah. There's this whole mass killing of people because it's never just men fighting men, eh? It's children getting roped into it. It's like, we should be more civilized today, but we're getting away with the shit that's like worse than back. What the fuck?
Like, there's never been a war in Afghanistan's history that's been good for the country.
Never been a war that's been good for the country. Good for personal, investors, people who involve different tribes, different communities at different times, but never good for the country.
Like even during the civil wars, you can say that, let's say whoever ethnicity won, right? They can say Great War.
Yeah, good for us.
Overall, not good. Yeah.
Well, it's just like, and it's good. Like, I mean, that's a good launching point of.
As to your friend saying America leaving is good, right? Yeah. I can see how he says America leaving in the long term is good. In the long term is good, but you have to look at it like the fact that they. Okay, maybe not everyone knows this, right? But the US effectively created the Taliban, right? The US funded the Mujahideen to fight against the Russians when the Russians were in the country. After the Russians left, the Mujahideen had like all these weapons and training and so much money, right? But the US just left them. And then once the US left, the Mujahideen turned into the Taliban. So that's where they initially came from, right? And now it's like they're fighting a problem that they created and they can't win against it.
And then they've left.
And when they leave, essentially you're leaving the country in the hands of the Taliban, right?
Yep, the people who you created who are now the problem. You've left it. Wow.
But here's the thing. If they can't make a full, and this isn't on the soldiers out there on the field, right? But if they can't eradicate the Taliban, I don't think they can. It's not like you kill the literal the people there.
It's so far removed from the people who are them. It's the idea and what it stands for now.
Exactly. So because you can't kill the idea, and because if you kill them, there'll be newer
Always.
people joining, right? Them living is in the long term good, but I don't know what's going to happen in the next few decades. Because
you mean in the short term good? Because if you're talking, it's long, but
even in these decades, I consider it short. Like in the next 10, 20 years, for me, is short term.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, it's like we're talking because I love how you said that, because when you said, oh, in the long term good, because a normal person will feel long's like
a half a century. A century good.
Yeah.
Right? But let's say in this 5-10 years or so, right?
Which is very long term. You think about it.
There's going to be a big struggle of power, and it's like whether the Afghan government, how much are they willing to fight back, and how much? For example, will the Taliban lose their like motivation to fight now that there's no more foreign forces? Probably not, because they want power in the country, right?
If they want power in the country, the thing in their way has left.
But
This is
then
good.
you still have the Afghan forces there, from the government forces.
Yep.
And then it's like.
But
it's
this
gonna
seems
be
like a
struggle
brewing
between
war.
them. Yeah. So, it's like, I don't want to say there's going to be another civil war. I don't think it's like, I don't think either side wants it, right? So they have to negotiate something.
So there's no civil war.
So to avoid a civil war, yeah.
Because going off what we started talking about on this was the fact that war is just bad. We shouldn't want that.
Yeah.
And that's an okay stance to take. I'm thinking, as someone who's on the outside, I'd like to take the stance that less people die. I just don't want people to die, man. Like, regardless of either side.
So this is what I meant when I said overall good for the country, right? Worst case scenario, the Taliban take over the country, right? But they can't be self-efficient in the country. Afghanistan is landlocked. You need trade with the people around you, right? They can't close the country like North Korea does.
Okay.
So they have to keep their ocean open. That means that we have to keep trade open. That means they need foreign relations. They need this. They need that. So I don't see the country being shut down. So in the long term, even if in the long term, I see the culture changing. So they know that the country and the people won't survive by shutting down the country. So they have to keep it open. So things will keep changing, and it'll eventually, with less war over time, who knows?
That's such a, I really want to lock down how terrifying that sounds. Less war over time. That's not telling me there's no war. That tells me, whoa.
There's always been war in the country. There's never been like a decade or so where there hasn't been war. It's always been like
days without casualty.
Yeah. Like, even when I say war, like, I don't mean like full blown out, full scale war. I mean, there's always skirmishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. They're in a war. They are existing in a war. It's war. It's all constant conflict, right?
And even if there's no like actual war, I feel like there's going to be a cultural war. Because the young generation in there, they don't want to live under Taliban rule.
Yep.
And the Taliban are like the most like restricting aspect is like the restriction of culture and free thought and free speech.
Because Afghanistan used to look different. The country used to look different.
The capital in the 60s, 70s, like, yeah.
It was, I saw the fashion. They had fashion going on. They had technology, engineering. The country was, it looked like it had already grown.
Yeah.
But through just some time,
it was more advanced then than it is now, 50 years later.
Yeah. Something I want to point on, I've always heard this line. Well, actually, something that I want to project is there a scenario where, let's say, Taliban take over, but because of what you said, they can't shut down, lock down?
I feel like they can't.
Then they would have to evolve. They would have to develop. They would have to be themselves, like Korean or whatever, but also at a level of like, they've got to give some level of movement. Like, they've got to make themselves more accessible. It's going to be a lot of bloodshed on the way to that, though.
Like, I feel like it's one of those things where I could like put, like, guess, and I could be very wrong or very right.
It could go, because you could say, because it's that's how in the air it is. No, that really does paint it to me how limbo state it is, because you can say to me, and we'd really like that would like a lot of bloodshed on the way to that, but there's a level of hope. My understanding is the Taliban, they love Afghanistan. They're the people who love the country the most. Some would argue. Just going about it a different way.
It's like hard to speculate what the Taliban love or don't love or want or don't want.
Well, yeah, true. Like, I mean, I should have them on the podcast. Hey man, do you reckon that? Bro, it'd be cool. And this is like, I reckon like, I don't know, 10, 20 years, podcast still running, I can actually sit down and talk to a Taliban.
You know what, 10, 20 years, I'll be back. We can We can talk about what we speculated.
Yeah, true. Well, that's why I do this podcast, man. That's why I push it, like, just a lot of times, like, doing something like this, I'm like, to what end, to what point? But I'm looking forward to that. The 10, 20 years when the news were like, oh shit, or oh, that's great, it's really good. We can be like, hey, remember when we talked about it? Because I think, what would you then say that it would have been? Okay, well, we've discussed the scenario of America leaving and how, that leaves you in this level of speculation of, but what if America stayed?
No. It's like,
You wouldn't want them to stay, would you?
America went in the country to fight the war on terror.
Yeah.
How are you gonna win a war against terror? Anyway.
Peace and love, hippies.
But it's like, they have to leave at some point, right?
Mm.
But right now in the country, Taliban has more. They are more in control than they were like just after the invasion just after 2001.
Mm.
Yeah.
Does it feel like then this whole idea, like, it's kind of like, yes, they need to leave. It's inevitable that they're leaving, and it's good that they're leaving.
They have to leave at some point.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a level of, like, they're gonna have to leave anyway. So you doing it now or fucking 10 years ago, or get the fuck out. Good.
Ideally, you want to leave, and when you want to leave, you want the country to be have the best chance
to survive.
To survive and flourish, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure them leaving
That's
now is the country's
that's
best
the
chance.
situation.
Yeah.
But it's just it's kind of like, no, don't stay, because I mean, you guys caused it. This is your fault, right? But you're also, it's very, and I mean, it's to be honest, I feel so many similarities with, like, the Vietnam. Like, it's a level of, like, leave because you've caused this, but we all silently hold this. Yeah, but we can't even hold you responsible. That's what I'm trying to,
Like, let's not underestimate how, like, when they went to the country and they pushed the Taliban back, that was great. Like, let's not underestimate that. I don't want to say that they caused it, like, they were the root of all evil, because they're not. But, like, they have to leave at some point. It's
just the way it has to be. Like, it's not conducive for the country to have any hope if this foreign power exists as, like, a threat on, a lot of what people feel is a lot of things, culture and things like that. So is the summit happening yet, or?
I need to check on that again.
Yeah, because I didn't even know there was a summit or anything. But I was just seeing that, I was like, oh, something about a summit. And
so many times there's been attempts to have a peace summit, to have a meeting.
So many summits.
They
They got so many mountains.
Like, they want to have a meeting between the government and the Taliban leaders.
Yeah.
And
how does that usually go down?
It's like, it gets postponed. It doesn't happen. They plan another one. It gets postponed again, or it gets cancelled, or it doesn't happen.
And in that time, so many people die.
Yeah, and then they have one, and nothing concrete is achieved.
A lot of speculation, a lot of, like, we'll do this, and then
they can't reach an agreement.
So, but do you feel like, because you haven't saw it, but assuming the summit's happening or will be happening next, do you feel like this is it's different? It's going to be the setting's going to be a lot different to what it used to be now that it's coming off the back of America leaving.
Once the foreign forces leave, there's only two forces in the country. You have the government forces and you have the Taliban forces. And then,
if they don't talk it out,
like, whereas previously when they go into negotiations, they have to take into consideration all the other forces that are in the country.
Yep.
And now it's going to be like a one-on-one. They have to reach a deal and they have to stick to it.
Oh, will they? Oh,
that's
that's why it's such a turbulent situation. It's such a
I'm not even that very knowledgeable on it. I feel like, even as much as I know, like, if I was in the country, I would know. Like when you're in the environment, I feel like you would know. You have a better judgment.
Yeah, better grasp on the news.
Better grasp on.
Of course, it's just the local news.
Yeah.
It's
From
like,
here, I'm getting, like, what I'm getting is news. What I'm getting is messages from people in the country. So
so you kind of have
I'm
it.
getting, like, a second-hand perspective.
Yeah, you have it in specs and stuff. It's different. Okay, no, I understand that. So for you, from the position then, in your case, it's almost like whether America left or not, it's not what you really care about. What you care about is the peace and
What I care
the
about
better.
is the country and the people in the country.
And different people have different perspectives. Some feel that there needs to be another war before it's okay, or not. Does everyone agree, or like we shouldn't be doing no more wars, or some people go, oh, we need to clock in another one, man.
I feel like one war in human history, everyone should have been like, you know what, not a good
Let's
idea.
not do this one. Yeah, but back to what I said about the children and stuff. But we just kept doing it worse, man. Like,
we got better at it.
Yeah,
we got better at war.
We got more, but like civilized, but more savage. Oh, it's just fucked because it's like these videos of these children coming out of rubble that shouldn't fucking exist. That shouldn't exist because we were like, oh, Vietnam War, First War, where it's all televised. We can see, oh, this is so bad, right? This is like they couldn't even imagine they were doing this because those wars before that, World War One, World War Two, they wasn't they're fought. Those were the wars that were fought on the battlefield, kind of thing, not in these villages and stuff, right? Okay, cool. So first televised war, great, we get to see it. We don't want that again. That we could see the de-evolution of human beings right there. Because when you're a savage with no morals and things, yeah, kill children, kill whatever. But as you get better, you shouldn't be doing that. That war showed it, and then this war, because if I'm talking about the immigrant experience, I feel like after the Vietnamese, it was the Arab experience. All right, so that came after, and that's why your war is much more recent, much more stuff that I talk about. Like, it's like you guys are the first generation. Yeah, it's a very interesting pocket of time of like the first Well, I'm the first. I'm first generation because my parents were the ones who came, but you're the ones who came. Your kids the first generation, that kind of thing. So two different generations of two different ethnicities, kind of like being able to still mix, because what would have been missing back then was language. In my parents' time, when they came, they don't have the better grasp of the English language. Stick with your Vietnamese people. I've come during a time where I can pick up the language. You've come during a time where you can pick up the language, and we just kind of the experiences are so shared.
And I think here's the thing, we're like, because I'm first. Oh yeah, I was born there.
Yeah.
First generation Australian, right? So I care quite a lot about Afghanistan, right? But I can feel the generation after me when I go to family parties. Yeah. They don't care.
There's a detachment.
Like, my dad cares the most, I feel like. Let's say in our family, right? My dad cares the most. He fought in the Civil War. Like, he was wounded in battle. So, and he keeps up with politics. When something happens, he has fundraisers. He sends money to the country to help, like, the people that are like homeless now, to help them get back on their feet. I care, but I don't think I care as much as my dad. And the next generation after me, they almost don't care at all. So,
but I mean, it's because they don't care at all because they're living here, though, right? There's obviously still exists the generation
so
that's
when
back
I
there
say
that
this,
cares.
I'm referring to
The ones who've grown up,
more
the diaspora.
specifically the people that I know, but in like a broader sense, the Afghan diaspora. So the people around the world, not in the country.
So, like, I mean, that's something I definitely want. Like, it'd be interesting to see. Like, it's so, like, what do you call it? It's like when you feel like you look into the past and all the atrocities that we've done, we think we've moved forward, and we sit here and we go, oh, we haven't. And it's such a thing I want to touch on is also with the Hazara culture comes the Islamic culture, Muslim culture. Something that I've noticed that my mind is because I haven't.
You just saw me drink some water.
Pardon?
So I'm not fasting.
Oh, well, that's right. Are you fasting?
No.
Yeah, because I didn't even realize. Shit, I offered you water like I didn't even. I'm a bad friend.
It's good.
I'm a bad ally. I mean, you brought it up yourself. Any reason you're not fasting?
I fasted when I was in high school. I was fasting throughout high school.
No reason, no personal choice, just.
I don't. I would say I'm not a practicing Muslim.
Respectful.
Yeah.
Fully, yeah. what came to that? Like from the move from like high school practicing and then deciding not to after high school, or
Like the more I grew up, the more questions I had
about
Islam,
faith and things like
about
that?
faith, and because I can't answer them, and because the answers that I get doesn't seem to
Satisfy you?
satisfy me, I sort of drifted.
Yeah, he's drifted
Yeah.
a bit. Although I noticed that in people, like when it comes to culture and religion, but then I also feel that I have this respect for, though. There's and this isn't an actual divide that exists. It's just that something that I can see where I can kind of put two components to the one thing. There's a component of the religion practicing and what not practicing, but still keeping alive the culture that makes you Muslim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how much
Like,
pork do you eat
still
nowadays?
celebrate Eid.
Do you eat a lot of pork?
I don't eat pork.
See my point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're still retaining what is culturally you, and that's what I'm.
And I still celebrate like with my family when they break their fast. I'm still I'm there with them.
Part of the culture,
I
the
still
rituals and stuff.
celebrate Eid
Yeah.
after Ramadan.
Mm.
Like I don't fast, but when I go to family gatherings and the really young kids, like I'll buy them like something sweet for them, or like it's tradition to give them money, and sometimes I'll give them some money, or yeah. So I still partake in activities.
Well, I mean, it's a similar thing with, like, for example, the Chinese New Year. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of us, we're not praying to the gods and stuff like that we were taught, like our parents might have, but we're still keeping alive the tradition of red pock and things like that. So with how much do you feel then, like with your Hazara culture, a lot of it has to do with being Muslim?
Most of it doesn't. I feel
Most
like
of it's separate from
the
that.
culture and the religion are kind of
Separated.
There are customs that are brought by the religion, but I feel like a lot of it is separated.
So, do you have any examples?
For example, weddings are heavily affected by religion customs. Yeah, but outside of that, celebrations, music,
That's cultural.
yeah, that's
It's
cultural.
personal. It's cultural, and that's the distinguishing factor that you can find. That's good, because because then that's what I would suppose would then set you apart from the other cultures that share your religion, right? Like, for example, on my end, it'd be, okay, I might be Vietnamese celebrating Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, however I do it, but then a Chinese person celebrate the same kind of holiday, but do so differently.
Actually, let me ask you this, right?
Yeah.
How do you view the North Vietnamese as a South Vietnamese?
As a
Southern?
if you ask me personally,
Yeah.
you have to take into context that I've traveled the whole country.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. So for me, I see them as just the same. Where it's been far enough removed from all that I'm like, yeah, we're all brothers. Although a conversation of that probably would never happen in Vietnam, because the kids my age there, they've been so removed from history, because the history that's taught is kind of, it's communist country, so they teach the history that you have to learn. Right, so kids learn it, they get through it, and it either stays with them, or they kind of know, like, this isn't all it, and so they don't engage as much, and it causes them to have this disconnect when it comes to.
So there is like a disconnect there.
Yeah, there is a bit of a disconnect. Like I can the most out of place thing to do is to literally sit with a bunch of people and decide to talk about history. When on the flip side here, we're like, oh fuck, that's a topic, let's talk about that. You know?
No, because here everyone has a different history. Over there, I feel like you know your history, and the people around you have the same history as you.
Yeah.
So,
but
you know what I mean?
Yes, true for sure. But what I would then correlate with here is we all have our own history, but then we all learn the same history.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, I might not sit here and talk about.
We're all taught the same history, right?
Yeah.
But we don't do our own. Like, we don't go by ourselves and do.
There's a level,
yeah.
When you're taught the same history, but it's not your history, and then when you're taught the same history and it's actually your history, and I can understand that. Maybe they feel like me being outside of it, I'm disconnected, for sure.
Yeah. So the reason I asked you about the North Vietnam thing, right? Like, there's like, so you know I spoke about the civil war, right? So there's a civil war. There's also like the other ethnicities. There's been conflicts between the ethnicities in the future. They don't always like each other, right? So when I grew up, I had that in me. So when I was there, I didn't like the other ethnicities. For like, I'm in my 20s. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be a better person and not hold prejudices.
Yeah.
But I have that prejudice in me against the other ethnicities, right?
Mm.
And this, I wouldn't say this comes from my old man
Mhm.
because he fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
It's just like environment you grew up in.
It's just
Right.
natural
Yeah.
kind of
So now,
what feels normal.
Yeah. So now I'm doing my master's and I'm doing my dissertation on Afghan literature. And I'm getting works from all these Afghan authors. And because of my work, I'm also connecting with other Afghans around the world. And I'm like, that prejudice that I had is like slowly being washed away.
How's it feel?
It's like I
Because
never had a
yes.
strong. Here's the thing: I never had a strong prejudice,
Mm.
and I never acted on it. Right?
Yeah.
But it was always there, because when I was born in the country, right? Like a month or so, or like a week earlier than that, the leader of the Hazara people, you probably have heard of him, Baba
Mhm.
Mazari, right?
Yeah.
He was murdered.
Yeah, he died
Yeah.
after you were born,
Yeah.
right?
So I was born in a country after a time of his death, right?
Mm.
So there was like a huge, like
Disdain, like
dis-
hate for a certain other.
yeah.
And you literally
hate
brought up into it.
for like other ethnicities.
Mm.
Yeah.
Go through that with me because you've talked about this with me. The ethnicity. Well, I'll go through and you fill in my gaps. Hazaras, right? My understanding is they are the Afghans who live in Afghanistan who look Asian.
Correct. Yes.
Asian. Yep. You have the Pashtuns.
Mm.
They are the Afghani of Afghanistan.
Yes.
You have
I would say we all are.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, but they are. Yeah.
With the whole how things present, yeah.
Mm.
Like then you have Tajiks.
Mhm.
I think they're a mix of the what is it, the Indian and the Asian, like the
So they're like mainly only the Hazaras have like the like Asian features
Yep.
in them or like Asian descent
yeah
of a long time ago.
Mongolians.
All the other ethnicities don't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just you guys are special. We have a link here, cousins. So it's Pashtuns, Tajiks. Have I missed anyone else?
Uzbeks.
Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
and then what's Tajiks? What are their like ethnic breakdown?
They're essentially, I would say, like some people say Tajiks are originally from Tajikistan.
Yep.
But it's hard to definitively say.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the country is essentially the melting pot of. There's like more ethnicities
Mhm.
but there's less percentage of them. So
Yeah,
there's
well, I
like-
mean, bro, like, think about it. You grow up in Australia. You know things as of. I mean, when you live in Australia, you think the language that's spoken in Afghanistan is Afghani. So there's that, and then when you're able to travel and things like, you understand. Oh, you have like culture, like these ethnic minorities. It's so like. It was so simple when you could attribute every ethnicity to a country. But then you understand. Land moves, land shifts, territories get built certain ways, and suddenly motherfuckers don't have a country. It's like, what country are you from? Well, we're from that part. We're not Chinese at all, but we're from like the Yellow River near China. That's where our region. What? And those people are the Hmong people. Have you heard of them?
No, not until now.
Have you watched a Gran Torino?
Yes. Okay.
Hmong.
The family living next
Yeah,
to.
Hmong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it was for me watching it. I was like, they're very Asian. They look kind of Vietnamese, kind of Chinese, maybe Laos, Cambodian, but the traditions were different. Like I couldn't relate with any of them.
Mm.
Hmong people, and I only knew that when I started traveling Vietnam, and I was like, oh, like you're not, and that was another thing. Like that was speak Vietnamese. Of course they do. It's a trade language. Like you work, you live there, you speak it. But they have their own language as well. And then to sit there and you hear them speak and you're like, you can hear, because language kind of develops near each other, right? You hear the sounds that kind of like sound similar to yours, but you can't understand anything that's going on. It's like when I hear Thai, that language, I'm just hearing these like dips and lows. Oh, great. Yeah, but I'm hearing these dips and lows like that are very similar to mine. Can't tell what's going on. Do you get that with your as well, like across the other ethnicities?
I don't get that with, for example, Pashto, right?
Yeah.
When they speak Pashto, there's
can
not
hear
a
it.
lot of resemblance there.
Yeah, there's not a lot
there's
of
like
resemblance.
almost from maybe I haven't heard that much Pashto, but there's not a lot of resemblance. But hearing Mongolian, it feels like there's an influence of Hazaragi there.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to point on. Yeah,
Like in Hazaragi, there's an influence of Mongolian there.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can hear like the it's like
you can hear the shape the words are in.
Yeah. I love
how
that.
the words are shaped. Yeah.
Hey, also can I say this is a bit of a poignant moment for me, as you kind of highlight, because I know if we had more time we'd talk more about your writing, which I think when you have time, because I know when you don't, come on a second time, yeah. But that's actually my first time knowing what your writing's been about, being that you've done this kind of level of like trying to connect. Don't even know what you're doing, but
you mean my dissertation or my
dissertation like on other Afghan literature and stuff like that. I think I might find a path for myself for that with Vietnamese as well, because there's a level of like I already want to do something that just off my run on passion alone. But as an English major, there's a level of I can move that into like from a master's perspective, getting something done. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, a lot more to flesh out, a lot more to unpack. But just finding out what you told me about yourself today, it put me on the kind of okay, cool, something worth considering. Because I did myself think, as I was like going through some like Vietnamese stuff, like by Wikipedia, there's a level of interest where I want to go study the text that they've been forced to study, like poets and stuff like that. Like it's more than just reading manifestos that tell you the ideology. No. Let's hear that in poetry now. Let's hear that in text stories. It put me on the path for that. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, camera's out, everything's out. You got anything you want to wrap up on?
No?
Good. It's good. Did you enjoy yourself?
Good.
You have a good time? How does he rate being on a podcast?
How does he rate being on a podcast? Good. I mean, it's like good to talk to people. Like these questions, especially about the country and the culture. It's like,
I mean,
there's not a lot of people that ask me these questions, so there's not a lot of people interested.
Yeah.
And I don't quite often get to tell.
Yeah, but it's also like some people you realize like they don't even know to be interested. You know what I mean? It's not even available for them to be interested. There you go. Show the world's just a fascinating place, and that's why I made the podcast. I felt like everyone's kind of got a thing to say. And as I go on, I realize not everyone deserves to have a thing to say, but
no, you can't say that on your own podcast. We'll cut that.
We're not going to cut that.